Hey, so back with another video. You see my face on this one. This is going to be really fun. This is Stephen King, You Like It Darker. Man, this was just so good. I really liked every single story on here. I wanted to just kind of go through each story, just talk about them very briefly, try to avoid spoilers. I am a huge Stephen King fan. I've read almost every one of his books. I don't even know if I can say that because I'm up to the 90s. I've read everything chronologically up until I'm currently reading Rose Matter. And when this came out, I jumped forward and read it. I've done that a few times, like with Holly. I went ahead and read Holly, even though I haven't read The Outsider. So kind of weird, right? Let's see. Take off the dust jackets. Got this really cool alligator, which, of course, there is a story about an alligator in here. Pretty cool. Textured. Yeah, I mean, all his hardcovers, they look awesome. But you got to take off the dust jacket when you read these, right? If you don't, that's weird. Definitely take off your dust jacket while you're reading. So let's see. What was the first story? About the two older guys with the good luck? That's right, two talented bastards. So right off the bat, just started off really good with two guys who, for some reason, they took a camping trip in the woods, and when they came back, they both became really successful in life. That's pretty much the hook. So, what happened out in the woods? You find out later, of course. Very, very cool story. Two friends go out into the woods and maybe have some sort of encounter. Very cool. I really liked that story. I thought it was a really cool way to kick off the book. Kind of like sci fi, not really horror necessarily. But then jumping right into horror for sure with The Fifth Step. So, a guy's sitting on a bench, he's retired, just enjoying life, thinking about what he's going to do next, no plans. And some guy sits next to him and says, "Hey, I'm in the Alcoholic Anonymous, The Fifth Step, whatever, the program, right? And the fifth step is confessing to a stranger or something like that. Can I do this?" And he's like, weirded out by this guy, but sure. And it has a twist at the end of the book, or at the end of the story, which the story's only like 10 pages long. So yeah, highly recommend that one. I thought the twist was wild. Next up would be Willie the Weirdo, and yeah, again, it's about Willie. He's kind of a weirdo. He likes weird things, and he's got a very strange relationship with his grandfather. Again, another crazy twist at the end of the story, which I really liked. I thought it was just weird and cool, and didn't really see where it was going or where the twist would go. I'm not very good at that usually. I'm not very good at like seeing the twist coming or what it's going to be. Sometimes I am if it's really obvious. Next up would be Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. Pretty sure this was the longest in the whole book. Looks like it was, yeah, over 100 pages. Definitely the longest, for sure, by far. Most of these are like not even 50 pages, it looks like. Not even 20 pages or 10 pages in that last one. The last two were just 10 pages long each. Anyway, Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. Yeah, this is where the book hooked me for sure, where I couldn't put it down. Just, it's just so frustrating and so engaging, and you just want to keep reading and find out what's going to happen. So, this guy has a dream, and in the dream, he sees a body. So, he knows where this body is buried, and he has no idea why, but he pushes it off, just a dream, right? But he decides to actually go check it out because he knows where it's at. So he travels, check it out, and he does find the body there. So he reports it to the police, and of course, he can't tell them how he knows the body's there because it was in a dream, right? So they think he did it. He becomes the number one suspect. Just very interesting. What if you knew something that you had no way to know? You have no reason to know this, but you just do, and no one's going to believe you. And the villain is so infuriating. It's just a cop with a bone to pick with this guy. He's just 100% sure this guy did it. There's just no other way. And at first, you kind of understand, like, how else would he know? He's probably the killer. Usually, the killer is the person that found the body or whatever. But this cop has some serious issues, and man, I really felt for Danny. His whole life was ruined just by doing this, what he thought was like a good deed, going out there, showing them where this corpse is so that they can, give the family some peace or whatever. It does not give the family peace because then they just think he did it and they want justice. And yeah, it's just so frustrating. And it ends in kind of typical Stephen King fashion with just a sort of a big, messy, sort of like just a crazy event. It reminded me a lot of like the Dark Half, that era of King writing. It was really good. I really liked it a lot. And the next one would be Finn. Man, Finn he's just unlucky. He's just always had crap luck his whole life. If there was something to stub your toe on, Finn's going to find it and stub his toe. He's just had terrible luck his whole life. And he gets kidnapped by some like mobster dudes who think he's somebody else just because he looks like this other person. And yeah, it's just like, poor guy. Poor guy. Fun story. On Slide in Road. This one was really cool. It's about a badass grandpa. That's pretty much what it's about. Family's taking a road trip. They get a little mixed up, a little turned around, go down a back way, which ends up they get stuck and come across a couple of guys who are doing something they shouldn't be doing. And this is silly. I wish I could just talk spoilers, but if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil it for you. You should definitely read this whole book. This one just has a badass grandpa. That's all it is, really. And the father is extremely infuriating in the book. So frustrating, especially as the guy who, I kind of know how to fight. I'm a black belt. And this guy just doesn't even try to fight back. And it's just so frustrating. But that's why grandpa's there. And it's really fun. Anyway, I'm not a badass fighter or anything by any means. The next one is Red Screen. This one is actually the only, when I first went to record this is the only story that I couldn't remember what happened. I looked at all the names and I could not remember what this one was about at all. Probably because it's only 10 pages. And yeah, as soon as I just flipped to it, I remembered immediately. But for some reason, it completely escaped me. I couldn't remember what it was about. What it's about is like, what if there's some sort of body snatchers type deal where you see this potential image and you know that there may be aliens or something taking over your loved ones. That's pretty much what it is. And it's just a silly little 10-page story that has a very, very hard to miss twist. Like, this is a twist. This is the kind of twist I can see coming. It's not really even a twist. It's just, you knew this was going to happen. Just by me telling you this, what the story's, what's going to happen. The Turbulence Expert. This one I didn't really care too much about. This may be the weakest in the whole story. It's just kind of weird. What if you could just know when there's going to be an accident? Well, that's what this whole story is about. It's about a guy who can sort of predict when something bad is going to happen, I guess, in a way, and just him being there alone will solve the issue. It's weird. Not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite in the whole book. But followed up after that is Laurie. I really liked this one. It's just about a guy who has just gone through some loss, and what does his sister do? Well, she gives him a puppy. And you know, they say that getting someone a pet is like the worst gift you can possibly give someone, right? But she does it anyway because she knows he just needs something to focus on and get up out of the house and move around. And at first, he wants nothing to do with this dog. But of course, after a little while, she grows on him and then really grows on him, and he becomes very, very much in love with this puppy who becomes his like companion. It's just really cool. This is actually the story with the alligator, I believe. Um, yeah, whatever. They found an alligator, but the real meat of the story is just him and this dog, and it was nice. I liked it. I like dogs. So the next one would be rattlesnakes. This is the one that I had heard was like a kind of a sequel to Cujo, and yeah, it is. I mean, it's got the dad from Cujo in it, but that's the only connection to Cujo at all. It's just you hear a little bit about his wife and son, who, if you have ever read Cujo, you know what happens to Tad, the son from Cujo. This one is just about him when he's old, and it's a bit of a ghost story. This is like actually the only story in this whole book that gave me the creeps. I was reading it at night, and he described being in this strange house at night and weird stuff happening. Yeah, it was the only story that actually I would say was scary. It was definitely kind of like old school King. It had some of the old school King creepy dread in it, which I really liked to watch. It was one of my favorites in the book for that reason. It's really hard to scare someone with a book. Really, really hard. It's not like movies where you can have jump scares or you can just have that music that gives you that sense of dread. I mean, this is just you reading words on a page, and you have to really put yourself there. Um, but when it works, and it worked in this one, kind of. And I really enjoyed it. So, just a couple left. The Dreamers. So this one was cool. This was kind of like Lovecraftian a little bit, which King is known to do for sure. It's about a weird guy who wants to experiment on you and see if you can have like a lucid dream. The lucid dream is like where you can sort of control what's happening in your dream, which I've never had. I've never been able to do that. Like the movie, was it Vanilla Sky where he does that? I can't remember. It's apparently something that is real. This is a real thing. Some people say they can control their dreams. Very strange. I actually don't dream ever. Like I hardly ever have dreams. Do you guys have dreams every night? My wife, she says that she remembers her dreams and she has dreams like every single night. Wild. I don't. I never, I guess it's not that I never have dreams, but I never remember them ever. Yeah, and I don't do drugs or anything. Like, I don't know. I just don't ever remember my dreams. Anyway, this one's about a guy who wants to experiment on your dreams and see if he can get you to control what's happening. And he says, I want you to envision a house. Now go into the house. And when you go into the house, I want you to try to lift up the floor. And they're like, that's weird. You can't do that. But in your dream, you can do weird stuff, right? So they lift up the floor and they find something underneath. And it becomes more, I guess I should say it transcends the dreaming into reality. Very cool. I liked it. It had a very strange creature in it, kind of like, I feel like I'm spoiling things at this point. I'm just rambling. I really liked the book. The last story was The Answer Man. So this was again one of my favorite books or one of my favorite stories in the whole book. Oh, if y'all have watched this far into the video, why? I'm proud of you. The Answer Man. It's actually one of my favorites. There, I'll show this so you don't have to look at my ugly mug. The Answer Man. So this guy comes across a guy sitting on the side of the road with a stand that says, I'm the Answer Man. I will answer any of your questions. So this guy stops and, he thinks it's really weird, of course, like you would. But he decides to play along. And get some answers to some questions that he's had recently in his life. And the guy says, "What's my wife's maiden name?" And the guy knows it. And so he's like, "That's weird. How could you know that?" So then he kind of believes it. But the question he asks are like, am I going to die during the war coming up or whatever? And the guy says no. But they're questions that the answers aren't like totally wild. So it could still just kind of be a hoax, right? The only weird stuff was him knowing some personal things about him. But anyway, everything the guy said came to be. And man, this guy's life was made very successful because he knew the answers to some of these questions. So later on in life, things are going so good for him. He has a perfect life, absolutely perfect. And guess what? It's like 15 years later or something, he comes across the Answer Man again. This time, he asks some questions, mostly because he doesn't really have any questions that he wants to ask. So he just asks some questions that are just there, like, is my kid going to be a famous sports athlete? Because he thinks he will be. And the guy says, no, he will not. And he's like, oh, that's weird. Does he just stop playing sports, or does he just give up, or what? He said, well, is he at least going to play high school sports? The guy says, no. And he's like, why would he not play high school sports? My kid loves sports. So then he starts to have these doubts. Does something happen to my son? Oh, sorry, time's up. You're on a timer. So now he can't, I can't answer your question. There was only like a 30-second window for you to ask questions, and the time's up. So he starts to have some real doubts. Anyway, it all goes downhill from there, and then he does see the Answer Man again when he's an old man, and yeah, it's really good. It's one of my favorite stories in this entire collection. Man, I sure do love Stephen King. He's definitely one of my favorite writers. I didn't mean to ramble so much, and I don't know how to speak like a normal person, so sorry about that. But yeah, that's Stephen King. You Like It Darker. I gave it 5 stars. It's not a perfect book, but 5 stars just because I liked every story in it, and I never wanted to put the book down when I was reading. And that's always like what I look for in a book. So yeah, after this, I'm going to go back to Rose Madder, and then I've got Desperation. Desperation is huge. It's like twice this book. It's huge. So that'll be fun. I've heard Desperation's really good too. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.